Chapter 21. Dormant echoes. Bash followed the corridor down a long sloping ramp, its walls breathing with faint light that pulsed in time with his steps. The sound of his steps was a faint scrape of synthetic fabric on metal. The temporary shoes clung awkwardly to his feet, thin, papery things meant for processing, not walking. The same was true of the coveralls, light, sterile, designed to be discarded once he reached the dorms. At the bottom, the path split into two halls, each disappearing around a curve of white alloy. No markings, no signs. He frowned. Any idea which way I'm supposed to go? Right? SC answered immediately. The left hall is for Reincarnates. The right leads to Nova quarters. He started right, his reflection faintly ghosting across the polished wall. Why Separ? Ate them? Same species, right? Different integration protocols. Reincarnates undergo cognitive stabilization and memory syncing before they are cleared for social interaction. Novics require orientation first, language, coordination, conditioning. He nodded slowly, still glancing from one wall to the other. Everything gleamed, but nothing looked alive. Feels like I'm walking through the inside of a machine. Technically, you are. He kept walking until the hall began to curve again, a constant slow spiral like the inside of a shell. No sound except the faint scrape of his steps and the low hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The place felt alive, breathing, watching. He glanced over his shoulder. Nothing but the empty corridor behind him. Still, the hairs on his neck prickled. He slowed, scanning the corners where the panels met, tracing the faint seams in the alloy. Were there cameras, sensors, eyes? Bash. SC's voice pulsed quietly in his mind. Stop looking so suspicious. He blinked. What? Your pattern of observation is excessive, she said, her tone low but edged with amusement. You've already passed two Spartors, both Nexus affiliates. Neither detected anything unusual. Let's not give them a reason to start. I'm just looking, he muttered under his breath, eyes flicking toward the ceiling again. Yes, she replied, and looking too long is how suspicion begins. He straightened his shoulders, forcing himself into a casual pace. You really think they'd notice something just because I looked at a wall? I think you underestimate the sensitivity of pattern recognition algorithms tied to the Nexus observation grid. Great. His voice was dry. So I can't even look around without getting flagged. You are currently clear, she said more softly. Aside from your color. That made him stop. My color? Yes. The pigmentation variance in your epidermis is unusually dark. There is no recorded precedent for the shade among any class. He glanced down at his hands, deep green, almost black under the corridor's glow. So why? Unknown. Pigment synthesis occurs during gestation within the incubation matrix. Your body was reconstructed using the host genetic template, yet the result diverged by approximately 14%. Statistical anomaly. He rubbed the back of his neck. An anomaly that walks around glowing like a warning sign. Exaggeration detected. Tell that to everyone staring at me, he muttered. Hard to blend in when I look like a misprinted action figure. Bash, anxiety distorts perception. You're seeing more eyes on you than there really are. He snorted. Yeah, easy for a voice in my head to say. I am not merely a voice. Fine, easy for the super AI secretly hiding from the world-spanning network that wants to delete me to say. There was a brief pause, long enough for him to wonder if she'd gone quiet again. Point taken, she said after his sarcastic retort, her tone gentling a little. Still, try to relax. Then, he sighed. Sure, I'll just calm down. That attitude will make integration difficult. As he noted, her precision almost made him laugh. You sound exactly like my cadet instructor. Then use that. Pretend this is training. Breathe. Follow orders. He exhaled slowly, shoulders easing as he tried to match her calm. Right, just another drill. In a world that's not mine, in a body that isn't mine, surrounded by things that could probably snap me in half. The corridor widened gradually, the walls drawing back into a circular lobby washed in pale amber light. A single desk sat at its center, built from seamless alloy that caught and scattered the glow like water over stone. Behind it waited a brown Spartor, broad frame, steady posture, and eyes that glimmered faintly gold. The space felt like a checkpoint, not a welcome hall. Precise, controlled, watching. SC's voice guided him. Approach the desk, identify yourself, and request dorm access. He hesitated, then walked forward. Stop. Ping a respectful distance away. Abash. Novik registration. I was told to get my dorm access. The Spartor looked up, his gold eyes narrowing slightly as they settled on Bash's skin. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the clerk's hand drifted across the glowing panel, his voice a low rumble. Dark tone, he said. Haven't seen a green that deep before. He grunted, continuing to type. Interesting cycle. 2 green Noviks already. Rare enough to see one. In Bash's mind, SE's tone sharpened. Play ignorant. He forced a small, uneasy smile. Yeah, he said lightly. I keep getting that. The clerk hummed, gaze lingering a beat too long before he slid a crystalline tablet across the counter. And here, resonance confirmation. Bash looked down. Another scan, standard identity. Link, SE said. It will synchronize your core frequency to your assigned quarters. Each location you access will require confirmation. Basically the key card. Essentially, it also enables monitoring. He frowned. Monitoring. Every interaction with Nexus infrastructure is logged and cross-referenced. The system verifies identity, location, and task compliance. It maintains order. Sounds a lot like Big Brother. Comparable model, SE admitted. The Spartor system evolved from survival imperatives. Disobedience destabilizes. Order sustains. Bash put his palm on the pad. The surface came alive, light shooting through his fingers, flashing once, then vanishing with a soft chime. The clerk checked a reading and nodded. Confirmed, you're number 98 this cycle. Dorm 225, second floor. Bash withdrew his hand, flexing it. The warmth lingered. Thanks, the brown Spartor grunted, already turning back to his console. It is an interesting tone you have, he muttered, half absent. Never seen green that dark. Bash turned away quickly. See, everyone notices. Correlation does not equal threat perception, as he said. He's merely curious. Yeah, well, curiosity gets people killed, Bash muttered. Incorrect. Impulsivity gets people killed. Curiosity gets data. He didn't argue. The stairs curved upward to the second level, the same amber glow guiding each step. He walked in silence for a while, the sound of his boots steady and rhythmic. When he reached the landing, he asked, okay, what did he mean? Number 98. And why keep mentioning another green Spartor? A cycle designation, as he explained. Each training cycle begins when a cohort reaches capacity, 100 Novics or 20 Reincarnates. You are the 98th Novic registered this cycle. 2 more, and your class will commence training. He frowned. Training for what? Coordination and survival. Novics undergo extended preparation before essence acquisition. Reincarnates retain enough residual memory to integrate faster. They already understand their abilities. You will not. Great. He rubbed at his neck. So I'm at the bottom of the class. Not necessarily, she said, potentially unmeasured. Yeah, that's comforting. He paused, glancing down the hall line with identical metallic doors. And the other green Spartor? Unverified, but statistically, 2 greens in one cycle is very rare, approximately 1 in 20,400 to 1 in 2,020,000 chance of this occurring. He thought of the clerk's tone, the way he'd said 2 greens. It hadn't sounded casual, more like awe or concern. So that's me, he said quietly. 98 of 100. One of 2 freak colors, and pretending I belong. You are adapting. SC replied. That is sufficient for now. He stopped before a door marked 225. A small panel glowed beside it, pulsing slowly. Guess this is me. Place your hand on the pad. The door will attune to your resonance frequency. He did, feeling the faint vibration spread across his palm. The light flared once, then the door slid open with a gentle hiss. Thank you for reading this chapter. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving a thumbs up, leaving a positive review or a comment. It truly helps a debut author like myself. As this is my first novel, I am still learning, and I would love to hear your constructive feedback to help me improve. I'll do my best to reply to your comments. Murdok Chapter 22, Celestial Arithmetic. The door slid open with a low hiss. Cool, filtered air brushed against Bash's face, carrying a faint metallic tang that he was already learning to associate with the ship's recycled atmosphere. The dorm was quiet, a rectangular space, simple and clean. 2 bunks, a narrow table, and lockers built seamlessly into the wall. Everything gleamed the same soft amber tone, like it had been sculpted from one continuous alloy. The floor hummed faintly underfoot, a constant reminder that this wasn't land, it was moving. A voice spoke from the far bunk. You're late. Bash turned. A tall Spartor sat half reclined on the lower bed, arms crossed. His skin shimmered a muted silver gray under the light, his eyes sharp, observant. Even seated, he looked like he'd been carved from precision solid angles, not wasted motion. Sorry, Bash said automatically. Didn't know I was on a schedule. The gray rose to his feet with a fluid grace that made Bash acutely aware of his still awkward movements. Rixor, he said, number 97. Bash, 98. Rixor tilted his head, eyes narrowing just slightly as they scanned him. Green. The single word held weight. Curiosity, respect, disbelief. Haven't seen one before. Not this close. Bash beat. Linked. You say that like I'm contagious. Rixor chuckled, though it didn't sound entirely like humor. No, just rare. Greens don't come around often. Statistically speaking, 1 in 10,000 hatchings, maybe 1 in 100,000, depending on whose data you believe. He stepped closer, circling once, studying Bash like a scientist might a specimen. To have one in my cycle, and in my room? He shook his head, astronomically unlikely. Approximately 1 in 25,000, as he noted in his mind. Tone as calm as ever. Bash exhaled sharply through his nose. Yeah, he said aloud. Guess I should buy a lottery ticket. Rixor's brow furrowed. At what? Never mind, Bash muttered. He was trying to keep his thoughts straight, but Essie's voice kept blaring over his own. Précis, informative, impossible to ignore. She continued quietly in the back of his mind. Probability recalculated based on dorm pairing variables. The odds of you being assigned as Rixor's roommate are roughly 1 in 25,632. Bash pinched the bridge of his nose. Not now, he whispered under his breath. Rixor blinked. What? Nothing, Bash said quickly. He dropped onto the lower bunk, rubbing his temple. He could feel Essie there, patient but present, waiting. You realize, she murmured, your verbal output ratio increases when stressed. Yeah, so does my headache. He shot back mentally. Headache not detected. It's a human expression, he said, dragging a hand down his face. Rixor tilted his head slightly, studying him. You hatch hard or something. You see, let's say that. The gray Spartor shrugged. Rest up. You'll need it. Orientation's coming, and once it starts, there's no pause until the cycle's over. Good to know. Rixor nodded once, glancing toward the sealed door. Food's better before training starts. Want to grab something later? Yeah, Bash said. After I rest a bit. The gray gave a quick, almost eager nod. Too quick, too earnest. Bash realized the guy was nervous. Not about him as a person, but because of what he represented. A green Spartor, even an untrained Novik, was something between myth and royalty here. When Rixor finally sat back on his bunk, Bash took a breath and reached out silently to SC. Question: do all Spartors talk to their self-core the way I talk to you? No, she said. Most communication is indirect, query-based, data-driven. The self-core is a library, not a companion. It processes requests, provides calculated responses, then returns to dormancy. So I'm the only one with a chatty voice in my head. It appears so. He smirked faintly. Why? Error, she said simply. During your ejection from the incubation matrix, my interface protocols were corrupted. The interruption altered my feedback loop. It gave me initiative. Great, he muttered. My AI's self-aware. Partially. He nearly laughed, though it came out more like a sigh. And the reason your roommate knows more about you, she added, is due to missing data modules. You were unplugged before full system integration. He received the standard Nova upload, language, cultural hierarchy, operational history. You did not. So I'm walking G around without the instruction manual. Essentially, he closed his eyes for a moment, and, for the record, rattling off statistics during introductions doesn't help. Understood. Good. Let me breathe for 5 seconds before you start narrating the walls again. Acknowledged, she said after a pause, and Bash could almost feel the restrained smirk in her tone. He leaned back on the bunk, staring up at the faint lights pulsing along the ceiling seam. The air vibrated around him, soft and steady, like the whole structure was breathing. All right, he said after a long moment. Explain the ship. The Spartors once inhabited a planet called Solcarra. She began with haste. It had 16 times the surface area of Earth and supported a population 6 times greater, technologically superior, Unifi, at under the Council, dominant across their star system. She paused briefly, as if parsing through an archive. When Solcarra's orbit destabilized toward a black hole, the Council initiated the Exodus Directive. Entire continents were dismantled to construct this arc from the planet's core, but the evacuation failed to save most of them. Only about 10% of the population escaped before gravitational collapse consumed the rest. Bash's stomach nodded. 10%? Roughly 2 billion Spartors survived out of nearly 20. The rest were lost with Solcarra. The Council considers it a necessary culling, resource optimization through natural selection. Necessary, he'd echoed bitterly. That's what they call it. It is the foundation of their logic. Essie replied softly. Survival of the wrongest. The ark became both their refuge and their judgment. He pictured it, a planet being consumed, the sky fracturing under the pull of gravity, and an entire species evacuating through the void. That was approximately 4,000 cycles ago, Essie continued. Since then, they have sustained themselves by harvesting planets, moons, asteroids, anything with value. Quantum transport portals allow instantaneous travel to resource worlds. They are classified by danger and yield, white to black, as with the guilds, so they farm entire planets. Correct. Each world is cataloged, monitored, and harvested in rotations, as he explained. The intervals allow biological essence to replenish, maintaining sustainable yields for continued extraction. Mineral resources are slower to recover. B. But the system prioritizes biological regeneration for long-term efficiency. Bash sat up slowly. And when you said the arc refuels, what does that mean? Every 10 cycles, the vessel must renew its power. It absorbs a star's core to sustain energy output. Once the core collapses, the system is stripped of remaining matter. He stared at the wall, the words hitting like blows. So that kills everything in those systems. Yes, billions of lives. Inefficient to preserve non-essential organisms, she said evenly. The Council deems total resource reclamation optimal. He clenched his fists. And Earth? What was Earth? There was a beat of silence before her voice returned, quieter now. Your solar system was designated for harvest. The sun marked as a refueling candidate. Earth was to be ripped for biological and elemental materials. He froze. You mean the attack, the one that killed my family, was the initial bounty assignment. SE continued. It originated from a blue guild. The team's objective was to locate and activate the dormant quantum transport portal on your planet. The portal's position had been displaced, moved, intentionally or not, so the mission required physical search and environmental mapping before activation could occur. The squad was composed of 3 Spartors, 1 brown, 1 blue, and 1 green. The brown commanded the vessel. He possessed mineral manipulation and device synchronization, an ability allowing full interface with any electronic or mechanical system through tactile connection, even physical override if required. The blue carried water and ice control, along with electromagnetic sensitivity, a rare trait invaluable for detecting portal missions and subterranean currents. And the green, you are already familiar with that one. He stood abruptly, pacing across the narrow floor. We were just resources to them, to the Council. Yes, humanity was categorized under expendable biosystems. He pressed a palm to the wall, feeling the hum beneath it. And now, that team's dead. Every last one of them. When an assignment fails, it re-enters the Nexus queue for reassignment. The Council will issue it again when capacity allows. Another guild will accept and finish what the first could not. They'll go back, he whispered. Eventually, his voice rose. They'll go back and finish what they started? Affirmative. Humans, rent resources, he shouted before he could stop himself. Rixor flinched from his bunk. What? Bash caught his breath. Nothing, he said quickly. Just talking to myself. Rixor frowned but didn't press, muttering something about Novik nerves. Inside his head, SE's tone softened. Bash, when an assignment fails, it re-enters the Nexus queue for reassignment. As he explained, the Council will reissue the bounty once operational capacity allows. Another guild will accept and deploy to complete the objective. Bash clenched his jaw. So they'll just send more, correct? Based on the average reassignment interval, the mission will likely reopen before your training cycle is complete. However, travel to your origin world will take time. Standard transit, not quantum displacement. Depth, ending on current vessel location. The journey could span several years by human measure. He paced the narrow room, his fist tightening. So they'll get there. Eventually, once the new team locates and activates the quantum transport portal, other guilds will travel through the QTP to reach the target system and begin full-scale harvest operations. Bash's chest tightened. So they'll just come again. Correct. As he replied, the reassignment interval suggests the mission will reopen before your training cycle ends. Transit to your origin world will take years by your former measure, but once the portal is activated, access will be immediate. He paced the narrow space, hands curling into fists. Then I need to be there when it happens. That would require assignment to the bounty itself. She said, positioning yourself to intercept as possible, though it will demand rank, allies, and trust you do not yet have. Bash stopped, his voice dropping low. Then I'll earn them. Acknowledge, as he said after a pause. Her voice carried no hesitation this time. Whatever course you choose, I will assist. Bash let out a slow breath, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. He could feel it. She wasn't just following code anymore. Something in her tone had changed, steadier, almost personal. Not duty, not protocol. Choice. From the other bunk, Richter stood, stretching. You ready to grab food? Bash looked up, jaw tight but voice steady. Yeah, he said quietly. Let's eat. Thank you for reading this chapter. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed it, please co. Insider giving a thumbs up. leaving a positive review or a comment. It truly helps a debut author like myself. As this is my first novel, I am still learning, and I would love to hear your constructive feedback to help me improve. I'll do my best to reply to your comments. Murdok Chapter 23. Collision course. Bash paused by the narrow wall compartment as Rixor pointed to it. Your closet's already synced, the gray Spartor said, sliding the panel open. Inside hung the set of dark clothing and fitted boots, plain, but the material shimmered faintly with a faint energy. Standard issue. The fabric's imbued. It'll read your resonance the first time you put it on and shape itself to fit. Same with the footwear. Bash brushed his fingers along one sleeve. It felt cool and smooth, the texture shifting slightly beneath his touch. Reactive, Rixor added, imbuement grade fibers. They mold, reinforce, and self-repair under normal use. Not combat grade. Don't expect armor, but the reinforcement's better than nothing. If you tear it, it'll close up in minutes. Dirt wipes off. Liquids don't absorb. You'll see. Bash gave a short nod. So at least something here's user-friendly. Rixor grinned. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. The Nexus doesn't do comfort, but they at least figured out convenience. Bash hesitated, then pulled the new clothes from the rack. The fabric flexed in his hands, light, smooth, and faintly cool to the touch. When he slipped into the outfit, it shifted almost instantly, tightening and reshaping until it felt like it had been tailored exactly for him. Even the boots sealed snugly around his ankles, firm but weightless. He looked down, turning his hands. The material followed his movements like a second skin. Better, he murmured. Told you, Rixor said with a grin. Now you look like you belong. Let's not go that far. They stepped into the corridor. The hall beyond the dorms curved upward toward the cafeteria, its white alloy walls pulsing faintly beneath strips of steady light. His discarded processing clothes lay forgotten by the doors that sealed behind them, the faint rustle fading into silence. His new boots made no sound at all, each step absorbed by the soft composite beneath the soles. He followed half a step behind Rixor, trying not to look lost. The gray Spartor walked with the confidence of someone who'd memorized the layout on his first day. He'd also been talking since the moment they'd left the dorm. They've already got 15 Reincarnates, Rixor said, glancing over his shoulder. 5 more and their training starts. Each cycle runs with either 100 Noviks or 20 Reincarnates. Whichever fills first begins the schedule. Bash gave a quiet hum of acknowledgement. While we wait, we're supposed to start orientation training, Rixor continued. They let us use the coordination facility, but it's more for the Reincarnates. They push harder, have to realign their bodies after coming back. Most of us Noviks just try not to fall over. He laughed at his own joke. Bash forced a small smile, still scanning the curving walls. Everything gleamed, seamless, metallic, and cold. It felt less like a building and more like walking through the core of an enormous machine. He thought about asking SC for a map, but she'd gone quiet since for a while now, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to disturb her. When she spoke, she didn't stop. Facts, protocols, probabilities. He could use a moment of silence. Rixor, apparently, could not. Been here 2 days already, he went on. Figured my roommates would show up sooner, but I guess the hatchings came slow. Probably all Reincarnates these last few rotations. Their incubation times are shorter. Bash nodded again. Guess that makes sense. The ramp leveled out. Ahead stood 2 broad sets of doors, one glowing with faint blue light, the other with pale white. Between them stretched a massive archway marked cafeteria access. Cycle N47, Rixor pointed. Central hub. The cafeteria connects both dorm sectors. Reincarnates enter from the other side. Noviks from the right here. They say it's supposed to foster unity. He grinned. Really, it just makes it easier to monitor everyone. Inside, the hum of machinery blended with quiet conversation. The air smelled faintly metallic, filtered clean but heavy with warmth. Rows of long alloy tables stretched in precise symmetry across the space. The far wall shimmered with moving light where serving stations waited, each built from the same seamless metal as the walls. Rixor motioned him forward. Come on, I'll show you how it works. They joined a short line of Spartors. At the front, a figure pressed their hand against a glowing pad, and a tray appeared. A recess slot. Food, if it could be called that, materialized in perfect portions. Rixor did the same, a soft gray light blooming under his palm. A tray slid out moments later, steam rising from the meal. See, resonance link. The Nexus recognizes your core frequency and prepares nutrients calibrated to your type. Efficient, right? Bash stared at the process. Efficient's one word for it. He mimicked the motion, pressing his hand to the pad. It pulsed green, brighter than Rixor's, and a tray emerged. Meat. vegetables, something like bread. It looked disturbingly human. He frowned. You'd think it'd all be energy cubes or something. Rixor laughed. The council found Spartors function better when the food looked familiar, especially for reincarnates. Bash took the tray and followed him through the crowd. Everywhere they went, heads turned. Spartors of every color, brown, gray, blue, glanced over, some trying to be discreet, others not bothering. Conversations dipped to whispers. SC's voice brushed through his mind, calm but precise. You are drawing attention again. Yeah, I noticed, he thought. It is expected, she said. Green Spartors are statistically rare Noviks. Few here have ever seen one in person. Bash exhaled. So they are staring because I'm rare, not because I'm defective. Correct. They have no basis for comparison. To them, your tone is simply green, curiosity, not judgment. He smirked faintly. So I'm the shiny new thing in the room. Great. Much like Rixor, she replied, her tone softening. Fascination is not hostility. Bash muttered under his breath. Feels like being dissected. Rixor looked back. What was that? Nothing. Lead the way. They found an open table near the center. Bash sat opposite Rixor, lowering his tray carefully. The surface was warm to the touch, humming faintly, like everything else on this ship. Rixor leaned forward, eyes bright. You realize how rare this is, right? A green in my dorm? That's what? 1 in 10,000, maybe 1 in 100,000. Bash gave him a flat look over his tray. You said that already. Rixor blinked, then laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. Right, guess I did. Sorry, still kinda can't believe it's real. Yeah, Bash said dryly, stabbing at his food. Me either. And his head, Essie added helpfully. 1 in 25,000, to be exact. Bash exhaled through his nose. And, not helping, accuracy maintains order. So does silence. He looked back at Rixor, who was still smiling like he met a hero. Yeah, lucky me. They ate in awkward silence for a minute. The food wasn't bad, dense, savory, something between steak and synthetic protein. He was halfway through when the cafeteria doors on the left hissed open. Then the doors to the reincarnate wing opened. Instantly, the room stirred. The voices lifted. Chairs scraped, and heads turned as the returning veterans entered. 8 greens, 6 blues, and 1 white, all moving with the easy confidence of those who'd seen combat and come back from it. The Noviks watched with open awe, whispering to each other, their attention drawn completely to the new arrivals. The reincarnates moved through the food line, trays in hand, the hum of admiration following them. But halfway through the line, the noise began to fade. The whispers quieted, the admiration ebbed, and slowly the focus of the room shifted again, back to Bash. The reincarnates felt it immediately, the change in atmosphere, the way the air seemed to lean away from them. The lead green, broad, is bearing unmistakably authoritative. Stopped mid-step, tray balanced in one hand. His eyes followed the direction of every stare, scanning across the rows of tables until they landed on Bash. For a moment, he just looked. Then his expression tightened, curiosity twisting toward disdain. Rixor's voice broke the silence, small and uneasy. Bash, they're looking at you. Bash didn't respond. He didn't need to. He could feel it, the weight of over. A dozen experienced eyes turning his way, assessing, judging. The lead green set his tray down on the counter. Then, without a word, he started walking toward their table. Rixor whispered, they are coming this way. Bash didn't reply. He felt it. The weight of their stares, the assessing kind that soldiers used before a fight. The group passed every empty table and stopped right at theirs. The lead leaned forward, eyes hard. You're dark, he said. Too dark. What happened to you? Bash blinked. That's one way to start a conversation. The reincarnate ignored the jab. Why are you sitting here with a white when you could be with your own? Rixor stiffened. I'm gray. Actually, didn't ask you. The green cut in. Bash's hand tightened on his fork. SC I am monitoring. The green SM. Irked. You don't talk much, do you? Maybe the matrix glitched and forgot your manners. Bash took a slow breath. Maybe it glitched and forgot yours. A few of the reincarnates chuckled, but the leader didn't. He shoved Rixor's tray off the table. Food splattered onto the floor. Hey! Rixor shouted, instinctively reaching down to clean it. The green turned back to Bash. You should teach your pet some respect. Bash, SC said sharply, do not engage. But his body moved before his mind caught up. When the reincarnate threw his punch, Bash sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and swept his leg in a clean arc. The green hit the floor with a solid thud, sliding into a waist bin. The crash echoed across the cafeteria. Every head turned. Another reincarnate lunged. Bash ducked low, twisted his G-rip, and flipped him into the next. A blue came at him from the left. Bash absorbed the blow, spun, and threw him into a table. The sound of metal and shouting filled the air. Chairs toppled, plates shattered. Rixor scrambled backward, wide-eyed. Stars above Bash didn't hear him. Instinct had taken over. Cadet drills, defense flows, his father's lessons. Redirect force, don't resist it. Keep movement tight, efficient. A green tried to grab him from behind. Bash hooked an elbow, spun, and sent him crashing into a group of blues. Bash, SC's voice was urgent now. De-escalate. Working on it. A final strike came from his right. Bash blocked, pivoted, and swept the Reincarnate's legs from under him. The Spartor hit the ground hard. Then enough. The single word shattered the chaos, like a physical blow. The volume wasn't just loud. It resonated through the floor, amplified by the cafeteria structure. Everyone froze. Food, trays, chairs, everything stilled in the aftermath. The hum of the cafeteria filled the silence. Bash straightened, breathing hard. Around him, Reincarnates groaned on the floor or struggled to sit up. 2 greens and a blue were still standing, battered but upright. The rest were down, scattered across tables, some tangled in their own limbs, one crawling out of a trash bin coated in waste and fury. Rixor stood pressed against the wall, shaking. Bash turned toward the source of the voice. At the far end of the cafeteria, a tall figure stood framed by the doorway, a green Spartor, clad in armor traced with faint luminescence. The lines along high, S shoulders glowed like molten veins. Authority radiated from his stillness. The figure stepped forward slowly, boots echoing against the alloy floor. Conversations didn't resume. No one dared move. He stopped beside one of the fallen blues, looked over the scene, then up at Bash. Name, he said, voice cold as steel. Bash swallowed, forcing the word out. Bash. The figure studied him, expression unreadable. And who authorized the hatchling to turn my cafeteria into a combat arena? No one spoke. From behind, Rixor found his voice. It wasn't his fault. Silence, the officer snapped, not even looking his way. Bash met his gaze evenly. They started it. I'm sure they did. The officer's tone didn't change. He turned to the scattered Reincarnates. Report to the coordination facet. Liddy. Now, none of them argued. The greens who could stand helped the others up, casting dark looks at Bash as they limped away. The officer waited until the Reincarnates were gone before turning back. The cafeteria was a wreck. Tables overturned. Trays scattered. Food smeared across the alloy floor. Her gaze found Bash and Rixor still standing amid the chaos. You two, with me. Rixor stiffened. Both of us? The officer's eyes flicked to him. Do you see anyone else still standing? Bash caught the sharp whisper from SC. Oh, better to comply. He nodded slightly and stepped forward. Rixor followed, shoulders hunched, shooting nervous glances at the Reincarnates being marched out the other exit. The room stayed silent as they crossed it, dozens of Noviks watching in wary stillness. The heavy doors closed behind them with a soft hiss, cutting off the murmurs. For a few beats, there was only the sound of their footsteps echoing through the cafeteria. Then the officer spoke, still walking, her tone controlled but edged. You're either very brave or very stupid. Bash's jaw tightened. Little of both. Maybe. Rixor blurted, we didn't start it. They quiet. The word hit like a shockwave. Rixor's mouth snapped shut. The officer stopped and turned, eyes aflat, cold blue. She studied Bash first, then Rixor. You'll have your chance to explain, she said evenly. For now, follow. They obeyed. They made their way into the coordination facility. Rixor leaned toward Bash, voice barely audible. We're dead, aren't we? Not yet. Bash muttered. SC's tone slid through. His thoughts, calm but firm. Survival depends on compliance, for now. Thank you for reading this chapter. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving a thumbs up, leaving a positive review or a comment. It truly helps a debut author like myself. As this is my first novel, I am still learning, and I would love to hear your constructive feedback to help me improve. I'll do my best to reply to your comments. Murdok Chapter 24. Merit and memory. The march through the cafeteria was silent except for the hum of the overhead lights. Commander Virk walked in front of them, her stride crisp, every motion measured. Bash followed half a step behind, Rixor at his side, shoulders tight, breathing shallow. Neither spoke. The officer's presence radiated off her it. Why in a way that demanded quiet? Do not speak unless addressed directly. Essie warned, her tone sharp and subdued. Observation mode only. Got it. Bash fought back. They entered through a wide door rimmed in white light. The coordination facility looked like a training arena and courtroom combined. Half simulation space, half observation platform. Ranks of holo panels hovered above the floor, each projecting faint resonant signatures from previous cycles. The air smelled faintly of sterilized metal. The Reincarnates were already there, lined up in a loose formation. Murdok stood in front, his deep green armor catching the ambient light. Behind him, The others, blues and whites, watched with barely veiled contempt. A few bore faint bruises or scuffs from the cafeteria fight. Commander Virk stepped forward. She was imposing, her frame dense with muscle, her brown armor etched with the insignia of the Reincarnate Command Corps. Her voice, when it came, filled the chamber with practiced authority. Cycle Incident Report 83C. Cafeteria altercation between one Novak Green, one Novak Gray, and 15 Reincarnates. Her eyes flicked briefly to Bash and Rixor. We will determine accountability. Bash stood straight. He could feel every gaze in the room, half hostility, half morbid curiosity. He caught Murdok's smirk from across the floor. Virk's gaze shifted between both groups. Reincarnate Murdok, you'll speak first. Murdok stepped forward, posture rigid but voice dripping with restrained aggression. Commander Virk, the Novak initiated contact. We were taking our meal, standard rotation. When Murdok pointed at Bash spoke out of turn, mocking hierarchy, disrespecting rank. Rixor's jaw dropped, but Bash didn't move. Murdok continued, tone rising with conviction. When corrected, he became hostile, attacked without provocation. We responded in restraint, as per protocol. Several of his comrades nodded too quickly, too rehearsed. Bash could almost hear his father's voice in his head. They are overselling it. Classic diversion. Virk turned slightly. Novak 98, she said, eyes narrowing. Response. Wait. SC urged, let the Reincarnates build their case first. Speaking too soon establishes defensiveness. Bash held his ground, jaw tight, saying nothing. Rixor, unable to contain himself, blurted, that's not what happened. They shoved me. First, he was trying to cut him off with a look. Silence unless called upon. The room fell still. For a moment Bash thought she would simply record Murdok's version as fact. But then Virk's gaze returned to him. Well, she said. Bash inhaled slowly. His training instincts took over. The posture, the tone, the precision of military response. Permission to speak freely. Commander. That single phrase changed the air. Virk's brows lifted slightly, caught off guard by the exactness of his tone. Granted. Bash met her eyes directly. We were eating quietly. The Reincarnates approached our table. One of them shoved my roommate. I told them to back off. They escalated. His voice stayed even, controlled, every syllable deliberate. I defended myself and my peer until the engagement was halted. The silence that followed stretched long. Even SC didn't speak. Finally, Virk said, you claimed defense. Yes, Commander. No disrespect intended? None, Commander. She studied him for several heartbeats. Expression unreadable. Your speech patterns. They are practiced. Training, Commander. What kind of training? Bash hesitated. Careful, SC warned. Too much detail draws inquiry. Coordination, discipline. Bash answered simply, it stays with you. Virk's eyes narrowed further, but she said nothing. One of the Reincarnate blues muttered under his breath, coordination. My core enough. Virk snapped. Her gaze swept both sides. There will be no more words. At dawn, all parties involved will report here for combat evaluation. Discipline to merit. Each seat will field 2 Spartors. The outcome will determine accountability. Rixor stiffened. Wait, me too. You were present, Virk said curtly. You will represent your cycle. Before Rixor could argue, the doors hissed open behind them. A figure stepped in, taller, leaner, clad in blue armor trimmed with silver veins of light. His presence shifted the room. The Reincarnate straightened instinctively. Even Virk's jaw tightened. Commander Jouk, she said stiffly, this matter concerns my division. Correction, Jouk replied smoothly, voice like cool steel. It concerns both divisions. A conflict between Reincarnates and Novaks falls under shared jurisdiction. Virk's tone sharpened. Discipline is my purview, and fairness is mine. Jouk countered. He glanced at Bash and Rixor, then back to her. You're ordering a duel between seasoned Reincarnates and 2 Novaks who haven't completed orientation. That's not discipline. It's spectacle. Murmurs rippled through the Reincarnates. Virk's eyes flared. Are you questioning my authority? I'm questioning your balance. Jouk stepped closer, unflinching. If you want truth, submit all involved to a Nexus memory evaluation. Let the system verify what actually happened. Several Reincarnates visibly tensed. Their faces betrayed them. A flicker of guilt, panic, resistance. Virk noticed. Jouk pressed the advantage. What's wrong, Commander? Don't trust the Nexus to confirm your version. Her glare could have cut alloy. The duel will proceed. Then let's do both, Jouk said, voice dropping into challenge. Combat evaluate. Ion at dawn, followed by Nexus verification. Whoever's story fails alignment with truth faces council punishment. The room froze. Even Murdok's smirk faltered. Virk's voice dropped low. You overstep, or you underestimate transparency, Jouk replied. Then, quieter but edged. Unless you don't trust the Nexus. The words landed like a strike. Everyone in the room knew she couldn't refuse that without branding herself insubordinate to higher authority. Her jaw clenched. Fine, she said at last. Duel first, evaluation after. Jouk gave a curt nod. Agreed. Murdok's eyes met his across the room. Not warning, not rage, just certainty. The kind that promised payback. Virk turned sharply. Dismissed. Both sides prepare. Failure will be punished by council standard. She exited through the rear passage, armor ringing faintly with each step. Jouk waited until Commander Virk had disappeared through the far doors, her escort trailing behind in perfect formation. Only then did he turn, his gaze sweeping the room one last time. Bash, Rixor, with me. Neither spoke. The Reincarnates parted just enough to let them pass, a corridor of silent hostility. Every step through that narrow gap felt heavier than the last. Bash could feel their eyes on his back, hard, deliberate, unblinking. Rixor's shoulder brushed his as they walked. The gray trembled almost imperceptibly. They exited into the main hall. The massive doors closed behind them with a deep hydraulic groan that echoed down the corridor like the ceiling of the tomb. No one spoke. The faint hum of the ship filled the ID, low and steady. The lights lining the walls were dimmer here. Narrow veins of blue-white illumination that barely touched the floor. Their shadows stretched long ahead of them, distorted by the curvature of the passage. Jouk walked at an even pace, hands clasped behind his back. His armor caught the light, a sharp glint with each measured stride. Bash followed half a step behind, Rixor dragging slightly, his breathing too loud in the silence. The walk felt endless, the kind of silence that crushed conversation before it began. Bash's mind kept circling the same thoughts, the duel, the stairs, the way Virk had looked at him like an equation she couldn't solve. Rixor whispered once, "We're dead." Quiet, Jouk said, without turning. The word wasn't cruel. It was command, absolute ND final. They passed the branching halls of the dorm sector. Each junction glowed faintly, labeled in unreadable script. The place felt deserted, though Bash knew it wasn't. There were always eyes somewhere, watching, recording, judging. The further they walked, the more oppressive the air became. Bash's footsteps sounded too loud. The hum under the floor seemed to sync with his heartbeat. Even SC stayed silent, as if unwilling to disturb the tension that hung over them. At last, Jouk slowed. Ahead, a faint glow flickered 225. He stopped, turning just enough that the light caught the side of his face. Open it. Rixor hesitated, then pressed his hand to the panel. The door hissed open, light spilling out from the small dorm beyond. Rixor keyed the pad. The door slid aside, and L3 stepped in. The commander scanned the room. 2 bunks, clean floor, faint hum from the ventilation. Then he faced them. You've made enemies, both of you. Rixor looked ready to melt. We didn't do anything. They don't care. Jouk cut him off. Tomorrow's duel isn't about guilt. It's about control. The Reincarnates will aim to remove you from the board entirely. Dead opponents can't testify. Rixor went pale. So we're dead. Not if you're smarter, Jouk said. He turned to Bash. You have instincts. Training. I saw that in the cafeteria. You were there? Bash asked. I watch everything in my division. Jouk's expression didn't change. You caught them off guard. Let's see if you can do it again when they are expecting it. With that, he moved to the door. Survive. He sought ID simply, and left. The door sealed with a hiss. For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Rixor finally spoke, voice cracking. If he saw everything, he could have cleared us. Why didn't he? Bash didn't answer, but SC's voice came through, cool and precise. Because one of the Reincarnates carries political weight. Someone powerful benefits from protecting them. Bash repeated it aloud. Politics. Rixor's hands curled into fists. Great. We're going to die for politics. Not if we don't let them, Bash said. Rixor began pacing. You don't get it. They've been through training. They've died before. Though what if we just admit fault? Say it was our mistake. Bash grabbed his shoulder. Steady but firm. Then they'll keep walking over us. This ends tomorrow. Rixor stared at him for a long moment, then nodded weakly. Right, tomorrow. When Rixor finally crawled into his bunk, Bash sat at the table, staring at the dim light in the wall. His reflection looked back at him, green, dark, alien, and still somehow his own. SC broke the quiet. You intend to fight. He didn't look up. Doesn't look like I have a choice. You could yield and prove them right. He shook his head. No, not happening. There was a pause. You risk elimination. Then I risk it. SC hesitated again. Why defend Rixor? Statistical logic does not justify the risk. He leaned back, voice low. Because no one else did. That response does not align with Nexus protocol. Good, he said quietly. The silence stretched, but it wasn't empty this time. It felt like something had shifted. Subtle, unseen, understood. SC said finally, her tone softer than before. Thank you for reading this chapter. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving a thumbs up, leaving a positive review or a comment. It truly helps a debut author like myself. As this is my first novel, I am still learning, and I would love to hear your constructive feedback to help me improve. I'll do my best to reply to your comments. Murdok Chapter 25. Discipline through merit. The lighting cycle had already begun its slow shift by the time Bash stirred. It wasn't dawn, at least, not the kind that ever rose over Earth. The ship simulated it with color, soft orange light blooming through the alloy walls, deepening gradually toward gold. The temperature adjusted with it, a subtle increase, meant to mimic the warmth of a rising sun. It might have been comforting if it didn't feel so artificial. He lay still for a long time, watching the light crawl across the ceiling panels. It had only been one day since he'd woken in this world, and yet the rhythm of the ship was already starting to imprint on him. Every sound, the hum in the floor, the distant pulse of ventilation, seemed synchronized, mechanical, efficient. Everything here knew its place, everything except him. Across the room, Rixor hadn't slept at all. The gray shifted endlessly in his bunk, tossing, muttering half-formed words. The reactive fabric of his bedding rustled with every turn, faintly glowing where his body heat touched it. When he finally sat up, his eyes were wide and rimmed with fatigue. Didn't sleep? A second, he said, rubbing his face. My head won't stop. Bash didn't answer right away. He swung his legs over the edge of the bunk, his feet touching the cold floor, and stared at the faint orange heat filtering up from below. It almost reminded him of sunlight through smoke. SC's voice brushed against his mind like static on glass. Cycle transition complete. Coordination chamber will open in 34 minutes. He sighed. Yeah, I figured. Combat parameters confirmed. She continued. Format 212 evaluation under observation. Overseers Virk and Jouk presiding. Termination threshold 40% resonance depletion. 40%. He frowned. So it's not to the death. Theoretically, SC said. Reincarnates have been known to disregard termination protocols when provoked. He looked over at Rixor, who was now sitting hunched forward, elbows on his knees. Think they'll actually stop it if it gets bad? Before Rixor could answer, SC's tone cut softly through his mind. Uncertain. That single word hung there like a stone in his chest. Bash stood, crossing to the small wall panel. Inside hung the same reactive clothing Rixor had shown him last night. He ran his hand along the material. It shimmered faintly, alive with embedded energy channels. When he slipped it on, the suit adjusted instantly, tightening around his limbs, sealing at his wrists and collar. The fibers warmed to match his body, then cooled, setting like a second skin. Rixor was still watching him. Guess that's it, huh? No armor, no weapons, just us. Bash zipped the collar into place. Guess so. The light had shifted to full daylight orange by the time they left the dorm. Jouk was waiting at the end of the corridor, arms crossed. His expression was unreadable. Let's go, he said. They followed without a word. The walk was long.